Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing inspiring stories from business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate investors on the pursuit of wealth and financial freedom. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by Knightsbridge Foreign Exchange. Hey everybody, welcome to Inspire to Invest. I have Dave Foster with us from St. Petersburg, Florida today. He is a qualified intermediary for 1031 exchanges and founder of the company, The 1031 Investor. As a multi-industry visionary, he has more than 25 years experience working in all phases of real estate investing, and he brings his clients a fresh perspective and a clear vision for strategic development using tools in the tax code, such as the 1031 exchange, as well as Section 121, which is the primary residence exclusion. As an investor himself, he views each investment as a unique opportunity to maximize returns. A degreed accountant with a master's in management, Dave also just released a best-selling book called Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth, so make sure you add that to your Amazon cart. The Real Estate Investor's Guide to the 1031 Exchange. Thank you for being with us today. How are you today, Dave?
Well, I'm doing great, although when I looked out my window today, thank you for confirming that I'm in St. Petersburg,
Is it
because I
snowing?
swear it looked like Michigan out there.
Yeah, I've seen some of that. I think I saw a picture of Pensacola and the beach with the snow, and I was like, oh, it looks like where we are.
My kids actually drove all the way to Tallahassee
Aw.
just to be in a snowball fight.
That's so funny. Well, I mean, the reality is I'm sure it won't last for you guys quite as long as us. So I'm just outside of Toronto and we've gotten pretty steady snow this year compared to the last few years.
Indeed.
Awesome. Well, let's just dive right into it. So obviously you're very passionate about real estate investing, but also how to strategically maximize tax efficiency. And I think that's something that I always find really interesting when I do speak to investors in the States, that you guys have the 1031 exchange, because here in Canada we have 66% capital gains and we're basically taxed to death.
Ouch.
So maybe you can dive into where it all began for you and then how you started to, figure out maximizing these different opportunities.
Right. Well, at some point, uh, well, actually, it was early on when my accountant informed me that I had a silent partner on every real estate deal I did,
Yeah.
and his name was Uncle Sam.
Yeah, of course.
Fortunately, Uncle Sam didn't take 66%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
But
new for us just in the last
oh,
few months.
but I wrote a check for $30,000 on my first real estate deal.
Yeah.
And that just was not part of the plan.
Yeah.
And when I think back now, 35 years later, what could that $30,000 have done
Yeah.
if it would have stayed with me?
Yeah.
And it reminded me of something that a mentor once said to me, which is, yeah, you do make your money in real estate
Yeah.
when you buy.
Yeah.
That's what everybody says. He said, but Dave, the true measure of wealth is not how much money you make, it's how much you keep.
Yeah.
And so that's when I just went on a lifelong search of trying to become efficient. I love how you used the word tool
Yeah.
to describe it.
Yeah.
So many people use loophole
Yeah.
and
I know. I talked
dodge
to
and all
someone
this
about
stuff.
that recently, and they're like, I don't know. We were talking about compensation, and I said, is this okay if we invoice my business? Because obviously it's more efficient from a tax perspective. It costs him less, make me more. And he's like, I don't know about these. He kind of reworded it. He started to say loophole, and he's like, tax optimization. I was like, well, why wouldn't you? Like, you're silly not to.
Well, another mentor told me once, challenged me from that way of thinking exactly.
Yeah.
He said, stop looking at the tax code as the way in which they take your money,
Yeah.
and instead start looking at it as a behavior incentivizer.
Yeah.
The reason there are things in the tax code, like the 1031 exchange, are because they want you to do a certain behavior.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you're rewarded. That's what I started doing.
Yeah.
And we were able to use it ourselves to fund an entire lifestyle. And I've done it for thousands and thousands of clients.
Yeah.
And it all stems around the fact that in the United States, the government wants a vibrant real estate industry.
Yeah, understood. Now, for someone
And
that's listening that has never heard of the 1031 exchange, can you explain a little bit about what that is and how you can leverage it to minimize your tax impact?
yeah, very simply, anytime you sell anything, right, you pay tax on profits. But when you sell a piece of real estate, if you use the 1031 process, which means you're going to buy new investment real estate
Yeah.
worth at least as much as you sold, then you get to indefinitely defer paying all of that tax and all of the depreciation write off that you've taken on that. So, in other words, you're getting to use the government's money for your benefit.
Yeah.
And as long as you keep that moving forward, you will never pay the tax.
Now, how does that work at the end? Obviously we don't live forever. So how does that work when you're passing a portfolio down to your children? Or what would be the most efficient way to do that with a portfolio?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily connected to the 1031, but like just as a whole, what do you think is the best
Oh,
strategy
absolutely
for
it
that?
is. And it falls in, if you don't mind, we can kind of turn this into a little discussion on what I call the 4 Ds of 1031 investing.
Okay.
So we talked about the fact that it's indefinitely deferred, which, you picked up on. We get to keep using that money for ourselves
Yeah.
as long as we want.
Yeah.
That's the power of compound interest, because you're getting to take somebody else's money, make money for yourself, then you make money off of the money you made,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. Now, the second pillar of the 1031 exchange is that it allows you to take advantage of any place that you find the real estate cycle to be. It's because you can exchange from any type of investment real estate into any other type.
Yeah.
Is it time to move into commercial, single family, industrial? Anywhere in the United States, if the property you're selling is in the United States. So you could move from areas of high appreciation to areas that are just now starting to percolate. It's a beautiful way to take advantage of market efficiencies
Yeah.
and build your portfolio.
Now, is there any limitation for people that are non-residents? So obviously I'm
There
in
actually are,
Canada.
because you got a lot
So
of
does the
Canadian
exact
listeners. Yeah.
same tax laws apply? Like I know we've got the tax treaty, but do you know if there's any differences?
Anybody, no matter any taxpayer, can do a 1031 exchange. Even foreign nationals can do 1031 exchanges, but there are special ways that they have to do them.
Right.
What most of our Canadian investors will do once they figure this out, because it's very difficult if you own the property in your own name,
Yeah.
but you're not a US based taxpayer.
Yeah.
It can be done, but it's probably not a discussion for today. We'll talk you through it.
Yeah.
But what most of our investors will do is they will form domestic entities,
Yeah.
American US LLCs.
Yeah.
Those LLCs can absolutely do 1031 exchanges.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's available for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to double check on that. Now, in terms of where your investing journey started, can you talk a little bit about, your first real estate acquisition and then kind of what your portfolio looks like at the moment?
My first acquisition was a duplex in Denver. I, my wife and I wanted to get off the corporate train, and the Minnesota girl, the Kansas farm boy living in Denver decided they wanted to buy a boat and sail the seas. So that was the impetus that started our journey.
Yeah.
And we said, well, what better way to do it than to become real estate investors?
Yeah.
Somebody yelled, it'll be easy. And so I bought a duplex, fixed it up, put renters in it, later sold it, and that incurred the $30,000 tax bill
Yeah.
because I did not know about the 1031 exchange. And there was a lawsuit that was settled right at that moment that changed the whole landscape so that it was going to become usable for everybody.
Yeah.
So from that moment on, we started doing 1031 exchanges and taking advantage of the primary residence exemption
Yeah.
to craft our portfolio from Colorado to Connecticut to Florida, where we bought a 53-foot sailboat with tax-free dollars and raised our 4 children on board
Wow.
while living off of our vacation rental portfolio
Wow.
for 12 years
That's awesome.
on the
So since you
government
have a
side.
sailboat, what would you say is the coolest place or your favorite place that you've traveled to?
Actually, it's very accessible here in the United States. Fort Jefferson or the Dry Tortugas, a Civil War fort that's about 80 miles off the coast of Key West.
Yeah.
There's a little island with a Civil War fort.
Well,
So
very
much fun.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm familiar with that. My first rental property was actually a short-term rental in Florida. So I definitely wish that I was aware of the 1031 exchange because I bought it when the dollar was at par. And one of those units that it was actually not really very profitable. Like if you could book January to March, that was always booked that you could book it 5 years in advance, but we had a lot of vacancies. So I decided to sell it after that 4 year period. And I didn't really, take a significant hit when it came to taxes because of the losses. But looking back, like if I knew then what I know now, like I would have shifted that maybe into like a multifamily property in Florida because the cap rates are strong, your land
sure.
rolls are more favorable. So there's a lot of things that I could have done. And, especially now, like our dollars, obviously not in the greatest
Right.
position. So it would have been nice to have kept that money in the United States and take advantage of that. But you don't know what you don't know, right?
Well, and that's exactly what we were talking about when you were able to look at where the market is. The 1031 can be adapted to fit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I
Yeah.
sold, I was kind of like, what do I do now? Right. So it's just like a lack of education at that point in time. But it's definitely something where I know a lot of Canadians that invest in the US for a number of reasons. But that's definitely a very big one. Now you talked a little bit about just, real estate investing will be easy that some people said. So I assume that there's a story there. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges and obstacles that you have experienced as you've, grown and shifted your portfolio?
Well, I think everybody gets the glamorous idea that being a landlord is hands off.
Yeah.
You buy property. There's people that live in it and checks come to you every month.
Yeah.
That's really not the reality, first of all.
Yeah.
So people find that out. For me, there is a very unique challenge that my wife has had to live with for 35 years now because I never met a deal I didn't want to do. And I have a very bad case of curiosity, which killed the cat,
Yeah.
but makes me want to endeavor into any type of real estate investing.
Yeah.
So she's had to just hang on for the ride as I have moved from typical rentals to commercial development. I built a house that became a major motion picture set. We did vacation rentals. I've done subdivisions. There's learning curves with every bit of it.
Yeah.
And you just have to learn to live with those learning curves.
Yeah.
And some people are smart enough to once they get through the learning curve, they then repeat over and over and over again.
Yeah.
That just bores this ADHD guy
Yeah.
terribly. So I no sooner get the learning curve figured out than I'm off to a different type of investing.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge that we've dealt with, but it's been fun. We're at a point now where we're actually starting to look into legacy investing.
Yeah.
And for me, that still fits with the 1031 exchange because we are still converting properties
Yeah.
from investment into our primary residences, where we're able to slowly convert some of the deferred tax dollars into tax free.
Yeah.
I'm now investing with my children and younger relatives to 1031 into properties
Yeah.
that they manage.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to joint venture.
Yeah.
And you asked about the end of life scenario.
Yeah.
That's the fourth D,
Yeah.
which is not defer, it's to die.
Yeah.
We're all heading there.
Yeah.
But if you die owning real estate, all of the profit from all of those years that was deferred in the 1031 exchanges is wiped away.
Yeah.
So my heirs will inherit those properties that we're joint venturing on right now. They will inherit them. They will not pay the tax.
Yeah.
My estate will not pay the tax. I will not pay the tax. So really, if you follow the model long enough,
Yeah.
it actually becomes tax free.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. Well, on that note, we'll just take a really brief break for our word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. I make tens of thousands of dollars selling my vacation rental in Florida. If you love to travel or spend your winter somewhere warmer, then this video is for you. From 2013 to 2017, I owned a vacation rental property in Florida, and I bought it at the perfect time when the dollar was par. When I sold the property in 2017, the majority of my profit actually came from the currency exchange. When I bought the property, the dollar was 1-to-1. I bought it 1-to-1, but when I sold, the Canadian dollar had dropped significantly, so I made thousands of dollars simply from the currency exchange. If you're buying a property, relocating, or just have to send some money down south to cover some expenses, don't use the bank. They're going to take a huge cut. Knightsbridge FX gives you much better rates to save you money and potentially profit when the markets turn in your favor. Check out Knightsbridge FX and save hundreds or even thousands of dollars the next time that you have currency to exchange. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. I value transparency, integrity, and trust. If you choose to work with me, you can be assured that business will be conducted honestly and openly. Time is of the essence in this industry, so you can expect nothing short of quick, clear communication from me. I'll keep you informed every step of the way so you feel comfortable throughout this entire process. Our homes are where we eat, sleep, relax, and play. My clients' best interests are at the heart of everything I do. And with this said, my service to you doesn't end when the transaction does. As your realtor, I'll not only help you buy and sell your property, I'll also educate and support you along the way. I want to help you fulfill your goal of home ownership and become your trusted real estate resource for life. I can't wait to share my passion for real estate with you. More importantly, to find you the perfect house to turn into your home. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in Durham Region or Toronto? Let's chat. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Inspired to Invest. I've got Dave Foster here with me, and we're talking about maximizing the use of the 1031 tax exchange in the United States and how you can essentially save on your capital gains taxes as long as you're buying another property within a certain window after you've sold a property. Now we're talking about some of those, ways to optimize tax and some of your challenges and things like that. What I want to know is, what would you say is one of the craziest things that you've ever experienced as a real estate investor?
My goodness, crazy things. Actually, one of the craziest things now was a client that I'm actually currently working with who wanted me to come down and personally supervise some of the document transfers, but he lives in a nudist colony. And I just went, really?
That's funny.
And politely declined the opportunity.
Yeah,
Fortunately, he still wants to work with us, but
yeah,
I was trying to figure out, where do you put your pen?
yeah. You got to wear a backpack. That's funny. Now, when it comes to things like lessons and advice, like obviously these strategies just in themselves are, probably some of the best advice someone could have. But just in your journey, what would you say are some valuable lessons that you would want to pass along to someone starting out?
There is, you cannot put a price on the value of advanced planning. Real estate investing, I know in recent years it's kind of felt like it. Oh, you can buy it, sell it tomorrow. It's a popcorn game. No, it's not a microwave kind of thing. It's a slow cooker. To take advantage of it, you need to spend time, because any amount of planning that you do that doesn't result in a deal
Yeah.
is still education. And education, it's like I used to love when the stock market investing way back when it was just becoming vogue. For there were the Beardstown ladies and all sorts of investing clubs were cropping up. You would go in, people would start their careers by first doing practice investing. So there were programs where you could pretend that you had $1,000, you start investing it. You get to see how you do. Well, real estate's the exact same thing. It just moves a little bit slower.
Yeah.
You've got to practice to find the niche that you really like,
Yeah.
what works for you, and particularly with the 1031 exchange, the longer you can give yourself to be able to do it and plan, the
Yeah.
better the results are going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, what would you say is next for you? Obviously, you've done a lot, but would you say you're more focused now on helping your family build wealth? Like, I feel like you've probably reached a certain level of success for yourself. So, what's your primary focus at the moment?
Yeah, well, we are still, because I just love helping people with the 1031. So you're absolutely right. We're doing legacy building using the 1031 exchange with our younger next gen.
Yeah.
And we're also training some of them because my my kids all learned the six requirements of the 1031 exchange by the time they were like 7. So now they're graduating now, they're economists and they're real estate professionals, and we're going to continue the role
Yeah.
of helping others with 1031 exchanges. I'm now starting to move my own investing personally into more passive opportunities
Mhm.
and into agricultural land
Okay.
because I really see those are the two. Yeah, it moves very, very slowly, but that's okay because that's the one thing they're not making any more of.
Yeah. Yeah.
So land may not be in the path of progress now, but it will be sooner or later.
Yeah.
So what better way to position our relatives
Yeah.
and our descendants in the future?
Now, for your passive real estate investments, what kind of things are you looking at?
I'm doing two different things. It's kind of problematic with the 1031 exchange because one of the requirements with the 1031 is that you sell real estate and you buy real estate.
Yeah.
So, a lot of your listeners are going to be familiar with the term syndication.
Yeah.
That's the big word these days for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
A syndicator will buy a piece of property and they'll bring in investors to invest with them.
Yeah.
They will run it. So it's totally passive
Yeah.
for the investors. But there's a problem with that
Yeah.
with the 1031 exchange
Yeah.
because what the investors are buying is not real estate.
Right. It's a share. So,
Exactly. So you
yeah.
can't do the 1031.
Right. Okay.
So what we will do and what our clients are doing is we will sell real estate, do a 1031 exchange, and let me toss some numbers where it'll make sense. They sell a property for 500,000. It'll have $200,000 in loan. So they have $300,000 of cash. They need to buy $500,000 in real estate.
Yeah.
So they'll buy a house for $250,000
Yeah.
cash.
Yeah.
They'll take the other 50,000. They'll use that as a down payment on a $250,000 house.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they bought enough, but they have their equity concentrated. And once that equity is concentrated in the free and clear house, they'll refinance it. They'll pull that cash out
Right. Because that's
and
tax.
then invest in the syndication. That's
Got
exactly
it.
right.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand that completely. Now, in terms of a favorite quote, since the name of this podcast is Inspired to Invest, I always like to ask people if they have a particular quote that motivates or inspires them.
It's actually a verse of scripture where Jesus said the two greatest commandments in the world were to love the God with all your heart and strength and to love others as yourself. If you take care of those two things, the rest of life just follows.
Love that. Now, for anyone that wants to get in touch to learn more about what you do and some of these strategies, what's the best way for them to find you?
Best way to find us, the1031investor.com. Once you go there, YouTube opens up, calculators open up, articles open up. You got the opportunity to talk to us. Just go to the1031investor.com.
Great, thank you. And we'll include that in the show notes below. Of course, thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. And for anyone that is watching or listening, we appreciate your time. Make sure that you have followed along at Inspired to Invest podcast on social. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to Knightsbridge Foreign Exchange for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.